Hello everybody, Aaron here from Firefly Studios. Today we're going to be looking at the life and times of famous historical general Sun Tzu, who you will aid in the conquest of his upcoming DLC campaign, The Art of War. We'll look at his great deeds and the chaotic world of warfare around him, all coming up in this episode of History Behind Warlords. So we're back with another dose of East Asian history, which will help you ground yourself in our upcoming DLC's historical campaign, The Art of War, releasing on May 18th. As we said in previous videos, this campaign will be an epic 6-mission adventure back into the world of ancient China. But before you start recruiting massive armies and designing impenetrable fortresses, here's a little background info to get you all cozy before you foray into the battlefield. But first, I'd like to note that Sun Tzu is a pretty heavily disputed guy, with some historians doubting his ties to certain battles, and even the famous military guide, The Art of War, which he supposedly wrote. So, like a lot of ancient history, take this with a grain of salt. The important thing to remember is that the wars and battles Sun Tzu apparently partook in were very real, and those events are the basis for our new historical campaign. So to begin, let's place ourselves within the complex timeline of Chinese dynasties. If you've played Stronghold Warlords and completed our Warring States historical campaign featuring Qin Shi Huang, and then you'll be familiar with the abundance of conflict and warring during this time. Unfortunately for the citizens of said time, the battling had been occurring long beforehand. And if we turn back the clock from the Warring States to the Spring and Autumn period, in which Sun Tzu is said to have been operating, we continue to see upheaval, betrayal, military coups, and sieges. Perfect for a Stronghold game. Now, the Spring and Autumn period where we lay our scene is a truly remarkable one. You had legendary philosophers crafting their works, such as Confucius, the emergence of completely new states, and key battles and military surges which would ripple out throughout ancient China, creating a pattern of open defiance of the king and their previously concocted mandate of heaven. But in all the chaos and confusion of the period, we want to zoom in on the state of Wu, said by the ancient historian Sima Qin to have been founded somewhere in the range of 12th century BCE. The state of Wu saw its most ambitious period in around the 6th century BCE, where our man Sun Tzu gets his medals for helping the then King Helü in his war with the neighboring state of Chu. Now, Wu was an underdog in the 6th century. It had been making big moves, but it was still a frontier state which didn't have nearly as much wealth or manpower as the powerful northern states of China. But it's in this position on the back foot, at a constant disadvantage, which would prove pivotal to Wu achieving victories over its adversaries. To kick off the cascading events which would result in our historical campaign in Stronghold Warlords, Wu began an open rebellion against its neighboring state of Chu in 584 BCE. Now, this was with advice and support from the state of Jin, who were way on the other side of China, doing their own thing and doing the usual looking for complete dominance over neighboring states in the entirety of China. Now, Wu vs Chu was a constant struggle for both sides. Loads of battles, skirmishes, and a wealth of sabotage, which was constantly niggling at the border between the two. But it wasn't until King Helü took to the throne in 506 BCE for things to really hit the fan, so to speak. But first, here's the probably fabricated, but nevertheless interesting story about how Sun Tzu linked up with our man King Helü. Now, there isn't much evidence to show just how Sun Tzu arrived in the presence of King Helü, or why he had the reputation as a military thinker of any kind. But as the legend goes, King Helü tested Sun Tzu with an exercise for Sun Tzu to prove his philosophy's worth. King Helu put Sun Tzu in command of a group of his concubines, asking him to get these women without any prior military training of any kind to perform a series of drills. Now, firstly, Sun Tzu positions two of King Helu's favourite concubines as lieutenants of the rest, giving direct instruction to them to then order the rest to perform the drill. Now, they give it a go and it ends up in mockery, laughter. The concubines don't take it seriously, and Sun Tzu summarizes that it is the fault of himself and the lieutenants. Perhaps the instructions were not clear. He repeats the instructions again and clearly, as do the lieutenants, but again, mockery. Sun Tzu then realized that the instructions are clear, so it must be the fault of the soldiers. So in a 0 to 100 real quick move, he executes the leading concubines against King Helu's wishes. Side note that he states that a general should have absolute authority when it comes to commanding their troops, even if the king himself is against the general's commands. He installs two new lieutenants, and obviously not wanting to get their heads chopped off or hanged or whatever the mode of execution was back then, the drill then goes swimmingly. Go figure. That's the legend anyway, but it's that exercise which apparently sold King Helu on Sun Tzu and his thinking. The state of Wu would now adopt his stratagem for their battles, skirmishes, and wars. Okay, so that's how our two boys met. King Helu with the ambition of total dominance over Chu, and Sun Tzu, a guy who apparently spent far too much time with his toy soldiers in the bath, thinking about how to totally screw over his neighbours. Back to the war between the states. Wu is said to have only 33,000 troops against hundreds of thousands at the beck and call of Chu. At least that's what our designer Steven tells me, so blame him if those numbers are not legit. Anyway, it was very much on Sun Tzu's military strategies that Wu was able to operate in any kind of way during this war, using deceit, practicality, speed, and very importantly spies, as the keystones for which to command the armies of Wu. These crafty tactics eventually ended up as the writing we know as the Art of War. But all wasn't peachy in the state of Wu, with snakes in the court and nobles making power plays of their own. Now add to this the Chu raising their own bannerman under the General Nanhua, who you will play against in the historical campaign, and things were frankly about to become real bad real fast. But that is where we will end the video, as to go further would be to spoil the campaign itself, in which you will take command of the forces of Wu in their many daring forays into the state of Chu. So that was a quick dose of ancient Chinese history to give you some grounding in our upcoming DLC campaign, The Art of War. The Art of War DLC will be coming out on May 18th, so be sure to head over to our Stronghold Warlords Steam store page on the day to be the first in line to venture back into the chaotic world of ancient Chinese warfare. But for now, Stronghold Warlords is actually currently 20% off on Steam, so if you need to catch up before the new campaign lands, it is the perfect time to do so. The sale will be happening until the 10th of May, so time is a-ticking. And if you have picked up Stronghold Warlords, we would really appreciate a review on Steam. If you've got a moment, it's feedback on Steam as well as, YouTube, Discord, Twitter, and our other tirade of social sites, which really help us improve the Stronghold series. Other than that, as always, leaving us a like on the video will help us out a ton, and we'll see you soon for another Firefly Studios video.